Hey, what's going on, guys? So, everybody's been talking about this PSA grading thing and the difference between slabs and stuff. And then today, as I'm doing some errands, running some stuff, I heard the quick YouTube video from Chris Swell, right? I'm sure many of you guys know who he is. Guy's been in the hobby for a long time. He does this as a business, right? But he had a really good take, which again, I was thinking in the back of my mind. But it was more for the differences for the grading and why PSA 10s are worth higher than 9s, right? Which I 100% agree with him. Like, I don't understand. Again, I'm still semi-new to the hobby, coming back in now, about to be a year back into the hobby. And these things, one of these things, that the price difference between a 10 and a 9, what the big difference is, to me, it's like, is wild, right? To me, wild, right? To me, again, I'm nobody, right? I'm just a dude here talking on the internet, but it doesn't make sense to me. Just mathematically speaking, it's just like, I get it. 10 is worth a 10, right? You should pay up for a 10. But he used the example between the Jordan 1990 Flare, right? A 10 and a 9, like, I think it was like a 10 was like $6,000, or it was a Jordan, I know for sure. And then it was like a 9 was like $50. Like, that's crazy. You can't go from $1,000+, couple $1,000 card, and then you get as a 10, and then in a 9, it's like under $100. Shit doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why the hobby is letting it happen. I don't know. It's just wild. Which, again, I agree everything you were saying about we are giving the grading companies way too much power, and I agree. Like, the hobby, the grading companies collective of a few companies. Like, how many people are in the hobby? It is just something that if the hobby started doing it, these companies would have to kind of rechange what they're doing and kind of fit to what the hobby's doing. But if the hobby in general is going to go ahead and just say, yep, I'm willing to pay 10 times more for a 10 than I would pay a 9, which again, it is subjective to what they're looking for. But my main thing is this, right, is the slabs. I don't know why, if your card is worth whatever, 10, again, I got a Jordan and Otani, it's happened to be the ones that I pulled up, right? It's kind of hard to see. So anyway, but like, if you're holding these slabs in your hand and you're blindfolded, you got no idea the value of what if they were identical cards and you had no idea you're blindfolded. And you were saying, whatever it is, your card is worth $10,000, right? And you were blindfolded and they just put these in. Which one would you actually want your $10,000 card? I mean, everything else we do, when we buy a car, when we buy clothes, when we buy anything, right? We're looking for the best of quality, its durability, like, especially like with a car, like, you're not going to pay and got whatever amount of money somebody tells you because it's got a name brand. But when you go and drive it and say you bump into, you have a tiny fender bender, your whole front end or back end just collapse in. Like, you're not going to pay that money for that car. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, you know, I did this with my kid. My son has no idea anything about grading cards. I just asked him, I was like, hey, you know, close your eyes. I'm gonna put these things in your hand, right? I want you to tell me which one do you think is better and higher quality. I'm gonna go ahead and upload that, make that video. I'd like to get a couple other people, but to do it that are not in the card hobby. I just want to know, just blind taste test, whatever you want to call it. Like, if you put this in your hand, you say, hey, listen, you're gonna use this item to protect whatever, right? Your cards, your money, a photo of your family, somebody that you know, something like that. Like, what would you put it in, and what would you think would be more durable, right, to protect whatever it is you're encapsulating? You know, guess what? He was like, yeah, he picked the Beckett slab because it just felt like it was more durable. That doesn't mean it's durable. I'm assuming so. It feels like it's durable. It's just crazy to me, right? I know Beckett was the top dog back in the day, especially, again, I was a 90 baby. I was born in the 80s, so I grew up in the 80s, 90 babies, whatever you want to call it, right? So like, Beckett was a thing. They had the book. Everything was based off Beckett. Great. You know what? Every company, everything, you have to evolve, you have to be better in order to stay number one. So hats off the PSA for doing what they're doing. And you know, I think the market is what the market is. The market will speak, and the market will let everyone know based off of what the market tells it. So again, not knocking on PSA, but again, to me, when I'm looking at it, I personally, like, for my PC, I would stick. I would buy it back at one. Of course, it's going to be cheaper for a card that I like, for a player that I like. It's for my PC. It would just make sense. I'm not paying the PSA premium just because it says PSA. Not for me. That's just not for me, right? But again, yeah. Well, why do we accept the feeling slabs worth it? I already kind of talked about that. Yeah, I already touched on. I got a couple notes here, so I don't rattle off because I just will go into a tangent. Why we're paying for performance and durability. Again, that's what we kind of already talked about. The blind test with my kid. Just had it in his hand. I'll probably get that video and upload it, and we'll I'll probably try to do it for a couple more people to get a little bit more of a sample size, just to kind of see, right? And then again, why is PSA the leader? Me just being new into the hobby again, I try to think about things analytically, like why is PSA the leader, right? Is it better turnaround time? No, that's not the case. Faster service, right? Better customer service, kind of not really the case, but I will say that, with my submissions that I've sent to PSA, Beckett and CGC, PSA is the only one who's been updated. So that's good. Like I have to literally go on the Beckett site and I put it in and there's nothing there. It just says received. Same thing with CGC. So, I've heard people are always complaining about PSA, and I get it, right? When you do this much volume, you're gonna have a couple of hiccups down the road. Now, like you should probably tighten up your shot group and not let these things, because if you are the top dog, everyone is going to be gunning for you, and they're gonna bitch about every little thing that you do wrong. It's just the nature of the beast, right? But I will say, haven't had any communications with any of the other grading companies I use for the simple fact that there's no updates. So I get it, everyone's busy, you know what I mean? I operate a business as well. So I kind of know, like, hey, when you're in the shit, you're just trying to get out of the shit. So I'm not going to knock it, but again, if you are charging for a service, you have to tighten up your shot group. You have to deliver better customer service all around to your customers, because that is the lifeblood of your business, right? But as a business owner, right, you're never going to make everyone happy. It is what it is. You have to do the best for your business and your employees and your team members. But there is a fine line that I 100% believe, right? And then grading consistency. Like I said, I've been back into this hobby about to be a year, and the plethora of stuff I see on the internet about, like, you know, hey, I had to resubmit it. That shit's wild to me. Like, there's no consistency. It is based off of the individual, right? You know, I've seen videos from Boston Card Hunter and a couple other things, you know, like there is no grading sheet. They don't have like a checklist. I just saw the video with Jeff Wilson over at the CGC, which I thought it was wild. They weren't even using gloves to look at your cards. Like that was crazy to me, right? You know what I mean? I get it. There should be kind of some set standard, like, you know, if they get a fingerprint. I'm not saying, I'm sure they're professionals, they know exactly what they're doing, but to me, you're putting on a video and there's like, you're grading a card, you're not using gloves. Crazy. Like, whatever. I get it, right? But like, there's got to be something. I did see a PSA. I think somebody did release a video. It was like, I don't know if it was like actually somebody for PSA. It looked like it was somebody for PSA. I have no idea. They have PSA stuff on their desk. Who knows? It could just be somebody trolling the internet. But at least they had gloves on. But the grading consistency. But that to me, like, if you're going to charge what you charge in your slab, right? Your 10, right? Your 10 is worth a premium, then there should be some consistency. Like, you know, it's subjective because you're gonna have people look at it, so it kind of makes sense to me. Like, if you go through and you're looking to make sure before you submit these cards, like, there's no way this is not a 10. You're trying to use every tool that's out there available, right? You're looking under a microscope, you're looking under a magnifying, you're using the bright lights, you're using probably, like, you're taking some pictures, uploading into AI, kind of get their opinion, right? If you're doing all that stuff and then you're gonna go ahead and crack it and resubmit it, it's your money. Do whatever you want. It's still America, right? But we shouldn't have to be, as consumers, to continuously do that. Like, their grading criteria, right? They should be running off a checklist, like, Q&A, like, not Q&A, but like checks and balances. There's a checklist, there's quality control, all this kind of stuff, right? I'm sure they're doing that. I'm going to assume that there a little bit is, but there's just like, we don't know anything about PSA, right? I don't really remember. I'm not going to say they didn't do it or what they were doing at CGC, but at least that was one of the big grading companies that allowed somebody to kind of go, I don't know if it, you know, either way, somebody kind of, we as the hobby, right? People in the hobby got to see a little bit of the inside, which was cool. I appreciate that. I'm sure lots of other people appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people were on the fence maybe about using CGC. may go and say, hey, I'm going to give them a try, right? Because they actually saw a little bit of the operation, saw that there are people that are actually slabbing, putting it in the machine, and they have a conveyor belt with a little bit with automation doing it. So that's pretty cool to me, right? I do have a submission in CGC, but again, haven't heard shit since I turned it in. Not a big deal. I get it. They're a little bit busy. I'm sure, they're trying.